From the Oklahoman newsroom, it's time for another Thunder Thursday. I'm Jenny Carlson here with the Thunder Buddies, Thunder Riders Eric Horn and Brett Dawson. We are in full off-season mode, guys, but still a lot to talk about as it relates to this team. And let's start with Russell Westbrook. You guys finding out overnight, essentially, Russell Westbrook coming back to town, but not coming back to town to sign his extension. Brett, is this, I mean, maybe it's not a surprise. I don't know at this point. But what's your take on what exactly might be happening here?
Well, Russell Westbrook splits his time, and he's here sometimes in the summer. He lives in Los Angeles, his home there most of the summer. He does come in. He has some connections here. His brother Ray lives here in the summers, lives here year-round, really. And so, you know, we learned via social media that Russell Westbrook was going to come in town. He was at LAX. He was on a flight to Oklahoma City. And I think for everybody, your brain kind of jumps to signing the contract extension. Found out that wasn't the reason for the trip and that the Thunder just doesn't expect that to happen now. I don't think that changes the way the Thunder views him signing or not signing the contract. And my understanding, I still believe, that the Thunder thinks he's ultimately going to sign that extension. But, you know, here we sit. It's early August. It's you know, we're a day away from what last year was Russell Westbrook Day. I can understand people thinking that that signing is coming, but for right now, it doesn't look like that's in the cards.
Yeah, and Eric, there were 5 guys when free agency started that had this option to sign these mega max deals, these designated veteran player exceptions. Blake Griffin, Steph Curry jumped at it almost right away, signed those deals. We saw James Harden fall in line quickly. Then I think 3 weeks or so after they could start signing, John Wall signed. Here we are more than a month later with Russell Westbrook. What's our best guess on, I mean, short of not signing, which I think we're all sort of the belief from what we hear and understand out there, that he is going to sign at some point. But what's our best guess about why just not get this thing done?
Well, I think Russell's just a different dude. You know, a lot of these guys, you know, there's certain circumstances that come with each person. For instance, Steph Curry, he was a guy that was basically on a bargain basement deal for the 3 years that he's had this wild success with the Warriors. He was making, as his highest salary per year was $12 million a season in those 3 seasons. So Russell Westbrook's a guy who's not hurt for money. 6 years guaranteed, which would be the length of the extension, is a big commitment. And I think we tend to think of these things in terms of what we would do, like if we had $200 million sitting in front of us. But when you really think about it, you know, Russell Westbrook is about to be 29 years old in November. It's a big commitment for the rest of his career to a team where he's not sure what the team is going to look like around him, and he's not sure about whether or not the Thunder is going to be consistently able to bring in guys around him to make the team as good as it can be to compete against the Warriors, the way that the Warriors are currently constructed. So it's a more difficult decision than anyone thinks, is just saying, hey, I want to sign for $200 and however much million dollars, $235 million. It's easy when you think about the money, but there's a little bit more to it. I mean, none of us would be quick to say, hey, we're just going to, I don't know, buy a house tomorrow, or hey, we think about these decisions. And it's a big decision for Russell Westbrook, so I can understand why you think about it. Not to mention, he can sign the same deal next summer, and it's not that nothing's going to change between now and then.
Well, he has the option to sign this deal before the season starts. The clock is not run out because it's August all of a sudden. He has the option to still sign this deal. Maybe that happens, guys. I mean, this is a guy, now I agree with Eric, for a lot of us to see $235 million. That's $250 million, guys. I mean, for crying out loud. It's easy to look at that and say, you know, what's going on here? But this has been a different summer for Russell Westbrook too, Brett. I mean, I think that is, I mean, it may not explain it all. I mean, maybe we'll be looking here in a couple months and we'll say, oh, Russell Westbrook wants to play some this season before maybe he signs it next year. But this summer has been different too for him.
Well, he had a baby. I mean, you know, he's a father for the first time. That's been something. He's had kind of a hectic summer between, you know, the birth of a child in the sort of early summer, late spring. He's taken some trips. He's been to Paris. He had the MVP, the award show in New York. He's done some stuff in LA. He has kind of a group of friends he gets together with in San Diego. He had the team together in Santa Monica last week, kind of working out together. So there's been a lot going on. It's been a lot of stuff. You know, the other thing is, you know, we talk about the fact he can sign this right up till the start of the season. or he can wait until after the season. He can sign exactly the same contract after the season, or at the end of the season, he has some other options. He could sign a 2-year deal with a 3rd-year option, or a 3-year deal with a 4th-year option, whatever he wants to do. He's got some more flexibility. So if he doesn't end up signing it, it doesn't mean that he's done playing here. It doesn't mean he won't sign another contract with the Thunder. It doesn't even mean he won't sign the full 5 years. But he might want to give himself some other options. He doesn't have those options right now. He doesn't have the choice of signing a variety of deals. There's only one deal he can sign. And like Eric said, it's a full 5-year commitment on top of the year he already has. He might want to be very careful about entering into that kind of agreement before he gives it a lot of thought. He's going to want to really think about that.
Yeah, and it's interesting, though, a day or so ago, I think it was yesterday, we saw a very sort of cryptic tweet from Russell about sources say. Now, I have no idea, as we often have no idea exactly what Russell is saying on his social media, but you would think this might have something to do with this extension. And then to come to Oklahoma City, not have anything to sort of say about what might happen while he's. It seems kind of odd, Eric. Like he was sort of leading that maybe this was going to happen. Now it's not. It's kind of strange. But Russell Westbrook, I mean, we know he dances to his own beat, and lots of times he's the only one that can hear it.
Yeah, and Russell Westbrook, to be frank, is a little strange. I didn't expect him to tweet something of that nature. Typically, when he tweets stuff, it's promotional stuff about what he's doing in his life, or it's a picture of family, or a celebration, or a party that he's going to for somebody in his family. It's typically not something that's related to like the media aspect of things. So that was a surprising tweet to Russell Westbrook. I have no clue what he's talking about. He could be talking about people saying that he was going to be at the Drew League. There was a report that Russell Westbrook was going to play at the Drew League on Sunday against Chris Paul and James Harden's team in kind of a pickup basketball game in Los Angeles, and Russell Westbrook didn't show up because he was at Disneyland earlier today. So there's no telling with Russell Westbrook. He could be talking about sources say that his baby had a full diaper, and then he came home and his baby already had the diaper changed, and Nina was like, "Gotcha." So it's Russell Westbrook. He's a very unpredictable cat. So
last thing on this, guys, I think Thunder fans are wondering, is there reason to panic? I mean, after a few days had gone by after July 1st, I think there was starting to be that sense. Now here we are. Do you guys feel like it's time to hit the panic button, or just chill out, Thunder fans? What's your advice to Thunder fans on this?
I mean, regardless of what we tell Thunder fans, are they really going to be chill anyway?
Good point.
It doesn't matter. I mean, in this post Kevin Durant world we live in, Thunder fans are always going to be on their toes about certain situations when it comes to losing potential superstars. Mm-hmm. That's the climate we're in. And until Russell Westbrook signs a contract, until anybody on your team signs a contract, regardless of who you root for, you should proceed with caution and kind of keep a level head about the future of your franchise and where it's going. But, with all the signs that we've seen of Russell Westbrook, it would appear to be that he's a guy who likes Oklahoma City. He likes playing here. Kevin Durant liked playing here too. He liked Oklahoma City as well. But there's no telling. These guys enter a period of their life where they might want something different. They might want the same thing. But Russell's been a pretty consistent guy in terms of what he's looking for from his life from high school on. And he's kept the same close group. He's valued his secrecy and his privacy. And, he's valued his commitment to the Thunder so far.
Yeah, a year ago, coming up, August 5th, actually the day, screaming from the front of our newspaper, Russell Westbrook, quote, "Nowhere else I'd rather be." And frankly, he's not really given any reason for us to believe that he's changed that feeling, I don't think.
He did a whole commercial with Toomey. Toomey, people. He did the Toomey commercial. How could he leave after that commercial? He could leave. I mean, anybody could leave. My advice to Thunder fans, enjoy the run. Enjoy the fact that Paul George is here, that Russell Westbrook is here. He's on this team, whatever happens. I mean, theoretically, you could trade him before the trade deadline if you felt like he wasn't going to resign. But I would say the weather's beautiful. Go get a nice cold ginger ale, sit outside, enjoy your life, and get excited about what's going to be a very good team.
Ginger ale. It has made its way onto video. If you missed that on the Thunder Buddies, you missed out. Go check it out on the podcast. All right, guys, let's talk for a second about Andre Roberson and free throws, because it's the subject that will never die until Andre starts making a few more. You guys had a really interesting conversation with him, and then you guys did some reporting that talked to some people who are more expert in free throws than some of the rest of us. Brett, you ended up authoring the story What was the most interesting thing you heard as you were reporting this story?
Well, everything that Rick Barry said was interesting, because Rick Barry is a quote a minute, and if you see that story, there's some stuff from Rick Barry that didn't make it in. It's just not family friendly, some of that stuff that Rick Barry had to say. But what I was sort of interested in, you guys know this, we at the Oklahoman, we get suggestions. We get people in live chats and emails who say, here's some things that Andre should try. We got a letter from a guy with a hand-drawn diagram of where to line his feet up and where he should put, what side of the line he should stand on. Move further to the right, put your left foot further behind you, all that kind of stuff. And so when we got to talk to Andre when he signed his contract extension, or signed his new contract, I just wanted to know if he gets that too. If we're getting it, doesn't he get it? And he did. He said that he does. People do come up to him and suggest things. They suggested the underhanded free throws, which he said he wanted to let people know that he had tried and it didn't work for him. How long he tried it, how significantly he tried it, probably should have followed up with him, but he says it doesn't work. And so I was just sort of interested in that idea. I think free throws are a fascinating thing, because you can find a friend. You've probably got a friend who can shoot 80% from the free throw line if he just goes out and that's all he's doing or she's doing, and there's no pressure, there's no consequences for missing, and so you sort of think that every NBA player should be able to do it. And I think what I found in reporting that, one thing is that a sports psychologist told me one of the things is that it is one of the few times where basketball players really focus on outcome. Most of the time they do without thinking. The free throw line, you do a lot of thinking. I think for the most part there are physical things that you can tweak, but there's probably some mental issues you got to work through too.
You mentioned Rick Barry, and I just have to read this because, as you say, quote gold from Rick Barry, talking about shooting underhand, because that's what he did. He said, "What's the aversion to doing it? That you don't look cool? If you don't think it looks cool, do you think you look cool when you shoot 40%? Does it look good for you to fire mortar shots up there?" I mean, that's about as honest as it comes, Eric. But, I mean, Andre Roberson, despite his struggles, he doesn't seem as far gone as some of these guys we've seen struggle shooting free throws. Like, if he absolutely was hopeless up there, I could see the underhand, but seems like he could be brought back from the dead with the current form he has.
He looked pretty hopeless in the playoffs that one game where.
Okay, all right. You had to throw that back in my face.
That was not good free throw shooting in the playoff series against the Rockets. I mean, to the point to where I wouldn't say it cost him a game, but it cost him a chance to extend the lead with the opportunities that he had at the free throw line. But, Andre Roberson, I think he's a guy that it is correctable. He can get better. I don't think he's ever going to be a great shooter. I don't think he's ever going to be a great free throw shooter. But last year was just not it was just inexcusable on his part. And he's got to get better mentally. And I think that's where it starts. He has to – I don't know if it's so much repetition. I think that's a part of it as well. And I think that, putting a big focus on it in practice is a big part of it for Andre Roberson, but it's the mental part of it too. Maybe he's just got to just relax, do some of this, some woosah, kind of just take a load off before he just find another ritual before he does the free throws to where he's not thinking so much about it, and he can't get much worse, I think. So it's probably going to be an uptick for him this year.
One of the things that the sports psychologist I talked to said was, he would play like men's league softball, and all these guys would get all this advice. Do this with your elbow. Stand this way in the box. He used to go to the guy right before, a guy who was in a slump, who had been told all these things. He used to go to him right before an at bat and say, "Hey, don't worry about any of that stuff people told you. Just try to look at the seams on the ball. Just try to find them." And that's all. It was focus on one thing. He said that free throw shooting, a lot of times, it's a matter of simplification. Count your dribbles. On your follow through, say a word to remind yourself to follow through. He likes the word through. And just try to clear everything else out. Give yourself some other things to think about. Now, what he said is, even with all that, what's funny about this is, it's just a suggestion for a guy you don't really know. You got to work with a guy. Eric talked to a shooting coach who's worked with Paul George and said he would like to work with Roberson. They've had some conversations about that. And what he said is, you've got to get to know a guy. What are his misses? Why is he missing them? No two free throw shooters are the same, and no solution is the same. No solution works for every single free throw shooter.
I think the biggest question from my perspective is, are more teams going to do what the Rockets did in that game, in Game 4 that you referred to, Eric, where you've got Andre Roberson playing lockdown defense on the other team's best defender, and in crunch time, they see a chance to get Andre Roberson off the floor because he can't make enough free throws to stay on the floor, forcing Billy Donovan's hand. Does that become a more commonly used thing. I mean, the Thunder has to be at least somewhat concerned about that. I would think they just signed this guy to a big contract, Eric.
Yeah, it's going to be something that teams are probably going to try to do more. I mean, the Rockets kind of gave them a blueprint to get Andre Roberson off the floor in certain instances. But at the same time, I think it falls on Billy Donovan to trust some of the guys around him more to make plays and be able to defend guys like James Harden when Roberson isn't on the floor. You know, throw Jeremy Grant out there. You now got Paul George you can use. You got a guy even like Raymond Felton, who's not a great defender, but he's a capable defender who can maybe, you know, hold the fort for you a couple of minutes until you get under that 2-minute period where you can intentionally foul guys and send them to the line. So Billy Donovan's got to trust his guys a little bit more and maybe risk putting Andre Roberson in kind of an embarrassing position.
Yeah, and I guess better defensive players around him. I mean, Paul George alone makes a big difference defensively, so we'll see how that all plays out. Before we get out of here, guys, I think since the last time we were on Thunder Thursday, Terrence Ferguson's contract finally signed after some haranguing, I guess, involving his previous deal overseas. A lot of talk about guys maybe moving up, moving down from the blue. You guys did a big story last Sunday about player movement in that situation. Is there reason to believe that the Thunder's going to do anything different with how it moves guys around with the now G League? Sorry if I called it D League a second ago, but is the philosophy and the way this franchise is using the D League, is that consistent, or are we about to see some changes, Brett?
No, I think it's going to be fairly similar. I mean, you know, this is the first year that the NBA allows you these new two-way contracts. You can sign a player who can spend up to 45 days with the big club, could be with the Thunder for up to 45 days, but be a player primarily for the Blue, and his salary would be kind of prorated at the NBA level. Daniel Hamilton is a great candidate to be one of those two-way guys. I would expect that that's going to happen really, really soon. And so there will be a little bit more sort of interplay there. And Dakari Johnson is now on the Thunder roster, but still probably is going to play some for the Blue. And I think you're going to see that with Terrence Ferguson. I think you're going to see him practicing a lot with the Thunder. I think they value the ability to kind of get him into practice with those big league guys, especially with Paul George. But he's not going to play a whole lot this year. That's just going to be the nature of their team. And he needs to play. He didn't play a lot in Australia. He's only a year removed from high school. And so the Blue is going to be the best way to really get him minutes. So I would expect he's going to play quite a bit there.
Now that Terrence Ferguson is officially signed, Eric, do you have any clearer idea of what the expectation for him is? Is there around the club, are they feeling like this is a guy that could see some actual game action at the NBA level, or is he going to have some pretty big steps developmentally before he gets to that point?
I think they're not sure yet. I think they want to kind of see how he starts, get him into camp, get him practicing with these guys consistently, going up against some of the best players in the world, in Russell Westbrook and Paul George. If they can assess where he's at in his development, he might be a guy that at some point in time in the season will get some playing time. I don't think it's going to be a ton regardless. I don't think he's just going to be this wonderkin all of a sudden and be able to be a serious Thunder rotation player. And as Brett said, I think most of his minutes are going to come with the Blue this season for developmental purposes. But I think the Thunder is still kind of keeping an open door as to what Terrence Ferguson is going to be this season. They like him as a prospect. They obviously like him because they took him 21st overall. But I think he's going to have a heavy diet of kind of the Josh Huestis thing we've seen over the past couple of years. A lot of call-ups, a lot of assignments to the D League. The Thunder has used a ton of those since they've had the Oklahoma City Blue in town. So I think that Terrence Ferguson's kind of a wait-and-see approach with him, particularly since he didn't get any work in the summer league as well. All
right, guys, still stuff to talk about. Even as the offseason rolls along, we'll keep firing mortar shots up there, like Rick Barry said. They'll go through the hole, though. Hey, be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.